Hey everyone, and welcome to another musing and amusing podcast all about War Machine and Hordes. On today's episode, we're going to talk all about content creation and community building. So if you're interested in War Machine and Hordes, you're part of the community, we are so glad to have you here. Let me introduce some of our guests. First, we have Rich Owens. Rich, say hi to everyone. Tell them what you do. I do not have sound. Sorry, guys. 1 second.
Hey, looks like you're muted, Rich.
We're off to a rousing start.
That's good, though. As we covered already, you're not an actual content producer, so that's good.
Well, it's good to see everyone. Been playing War Machine since Mark 1, so I have a really long history with the game. I'm also a documentary filmmaker. That's what I do professionally. So a few years ago, those two huge parts and sides of my life kind of intersected, and I was able to make a documentary about what it's like to play miniature games and sort of what it's like to be part of a community that has a shared passion for something.
That's awesome. And we'll definitely link it in the show notes, Rich, just so you know, and then we'll play a little bit of it so people can get a taste of just like how professional you are. I was very, very impressed with the video.
Thanks.
Danny, why don't you go ahead and say hi while Chris unmutes his mic so we don't do another one of those stumbles.
It's unmuted. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's fine.
Hey, everybody. Danny back again.
Okay, that works, I guess. Chris, you're up next.
Cool. Chris Taylor Wolf. I am one of the content creators on the Boost a Hit blog and YouTube channel. Go check us out. Been playing War Machine for almost 16 years now, so long dang time. Bounced around factions. Took a little bit of a break. 2020 was kind of a weird year. Didn't really do too much then. But back at it and really loving it.
All right. Well, very cool. So anyway, before the end of the show, obviously in our Getting Better segment, we'll be talking all about why you might consider playing one list and the advantages to that to get really good at doing one thing. So let's get started. Our first content topic today is just how content producers and documentary filmmakers really help the community by putting stuff out there that kind of ties everybody together and how important they are. So I'm going to go ahead and let Danny kick us off. And I apologize, everyone. I'm really under the weather. So I'm going to try really hard not to cough into the mic and blow you all out. But if I do, mea culpa. I mean, I'm doing my best. I have like 8 halls in my mouth right now. So we'll do our best.
Yeah, awesome. And John, do you want to start with the news? I know there was a new my mini fact release, right? So let's cover that real fast. So one of the things that Steamforged Games has been doing is they have these STLs that you can subscribe to on a monthly basis, and then you get to print them if you ever. So they just released what is going to be out in July. I think it looks amazing, honestly. One of the cool things for the old guys and War Machines, they have these, what they would call these extreme models. This extreme Carnivian that was just this huge, like, Hulk war beast that, everybody used to have. And really, for them, you would only be able to get them at conventions. Now what you're doing, though, is you want an extreme beast or an extreme caster, you can actually 3D print it. So for John, just to build it, see that they have the, I think it's extreme, one of the warlocks, the old
I think you have to lean into your mic a little bit more. You coming through a little washed out.
Oh, am I? Okay, is this better?
And you are back in it.
Cool.
Yeah, much better. One of the cool things about the My Mini Factory stuff is they give you terrain, base inserts, some models. I think the very coolest thing they do is they give us alt sculpts for models. So this is one of the old Ombre warlocks. So for this month, they'll have this. If they do kind of like what they did with Gravediggers, you'll see a lot more faction-specific stuff for Old Umbre come out for the next 2 months, I would expect. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably going to follow the same template that they did with Gravediggers and with Crits before that. So I expect to see alternative arms, maybe a different faction. Like for Gravediggers, they did ghost stones, right? So you had some alternative warcaster and some folks there.
Danny, you're
really,
getting washed out again, but
am I still getting washed out? Weird. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, when you speak up, it's fine. So
Let me just try to get a little bit closer. I wonder if this is better.
yell into John's ear. That's all you need to do. Blow him out.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, sorry guys. Yeah, I was saying that basically, you know, if we take a look at the template of past months releases, you know, they've done it with Cricks, they've done it with Gravediggers, and you know what I expect to see is a bunch of different alternative parts and things for Old Umbry. One of the really cool things about the releases is the terrain, because you know, for me as a returning player, there's all of these new types of terrain that I don't necessarily have. You know, scatter terrain being one of them. And what I really liked about the Dark Operations set is it comes with a bunch of scatter terrain. So, you know, I can just get one of my buddies to print that out, and then I have some to put on the table.
Rich, you look like you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just think how game companies are starting to adopt 3D printing and how accessible that is for all of us, like more and more, is I just think it's like really interesting, and I think it's going to make for a fascinating like next 5 years for miniature gaming.
Just as an aside, I'm going to tangent for a second. Rich, do you think you'll see a time when you purchase STLs and you just print your models at home?
Me?
I just mean anyone.
I mean, people are already doing that. Like,
no, I like Games Workshop doesn't sell their STLs, right?
I guess I think of like every other company but Games Workshop.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, well, most of the other companies don't sell their STLs. They give us a few, but they're not selling the bulk of the miniatures they produce. Like Privateer Press, or I guess not Privateer Press, Steamforge now. They give us all these alt sculpts and cool stuff, and some of their older models they're bringing back that you can't get a hold of, but they're not necessarily allowing you to print all the old Umbray models. I think eventually where the technology goes is like everybody has a printer in their house to print documents. Everybody will have a 3D printer in their house when the technology gets there, and they'll, instead of like going and buying a part for their toilet, they'll print it. It's kind of interesting to think about. Anyway.
No, I think about it. It's really futurist, but I think about that stuff all the time. Like in 10 years, we may all be required to have 3D printers.
We're getting to the point where the 3D printer hobbyists are printing parts to enhance their 3D printer. So we're already there. It's weird. It's creepy. It's cool as hell. I love it.
Yeah, 3D printing inception.
Yeah. Now, when the 3D printers start printing the 3D printers, well, then we got a real problem. And that's, you know, I don't know. ChatGPT's got like 2 or 3 years before we're at that point. So I think we're safe for a little bit, but maybe Arma. I'm not just saying the robots are coming.
Yeah.
I love this new STL package they put out. You know, one of the things that got me with War Machine early on in Mark II is seeing all these really cinematic scenes that were set in the rule book and in all the marketing materials. And what always, you know, got me down a bit was I am a hobbyist of middling on a good day skill, and there's no way I could ever recreate that. I mean, these are just super cool scenes, but you know, the fantasy itself is really cool. I look at these STLs and I go, I'm an idiot with an airbrush and a flock table. I can make this now. That is so freaking cool that I could have like a whole Cephalix dungeon set up on my table. And all I have to do is have or know someone who has a 3D printer and can do, and I'm talking like a passable job at painting it. And you're there. That's so cool.
All right.
The other thing, this is vital. The little fox on Lycia's face. I hope that's a separate piece. I need like 30 of them for no reason at all. I just need that. That little guy right there. Look at him. I want that. Just as a separate piece. It's going on every base.
So one extremely smart thing that I think Steamforge is doing with these STLs is that for Cephalix, right, you can actually print out all of the casters. You can print out their war beasts. You can print out the units. So, you know, we're going to be talking a little bit later about community, and you know, let's say you have somebody who's moseying their way over, watching the game and interested in the game. At this point, you can say, hey, I have the STLs, you know, pay me for some resin, you know, $5 or whatever, and I'll print you an army. you can have a demo like next week and you can paint and everything. So I think that's a really good selling point for new players.
Okay, the only other announcement I had that I skipped over because I'm not feeling well and I'm not good at this, we'll leave that aside for now, is that we're going to be adding a live Q&A to the show. I haven't decided exactly when we're going to add that. Like it'll be in the same half an hour every week, so that if you have questions, you want to jump on the show and be on camera, just like all of these guys are. And we'll talk about what you want to talk about, which I think is going to be really cool. And then we'll have our producers, Kevin and Keith, who are going to, coordinate all that, work with you guys, get you on stage, and then we'll just go through your questions. So I think that'll be really cool. All right, let's talk about community. But before we get started, Rich, I want to show off your documentary, if I could.
Absolutely.
Let's watch 2 minutes of it and show you guys what a professional does. All right, let me fix that. Hold on. Thanks, Alex. You're saving me here. Is there sound now? Oh, hold on. Let's try this one more time. The beauty of live. Is there sound now, Alex?
No sound.
So I think maybe let's play this in the background so people can get the visuals, and then Rich, maybe you want to talk a little bit about kind of what made you want to film this in the first place. I know that for those that don't know, you've been with NFL Films, you've done lacrosse. So to me, you've always been a sports documentary guy. So it was really fascinated when I saw that you were going to do something on miniatures.
Yeah, of course. So I kind of had the idea that I wanted to do something documentary related to miniature wargaming for quite a while, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I had the idea and just didn't really know how to do it. It took me several years to figure out what the story was. So when you're making a documentary, when you're making something like this, you want to have a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want an arc to it, and you need to have conflict. That doesn't mean necessarily people coming in conflict with each other or fighting. It just means for any good story, think of any good movie you watch, there is an element of conflict in the story that makes you want to keep watching, and there needs to be a resolution at the end. And it took me a really long time to figure out what that could be, because I didn't want the film to just be guys rolling dice and games being played, because the layman that would watch this just wouldn't really be interested or have any idea what was going on. So that's a long-winded way to say that I was trying to figure out what this thing could be. And the thread that I realized sort of binded everything together was this idea of community. And this idea that all of us as people need to find a community where there's a shared passion that sort of binds us together. And for me, in my whole life, that's been miniature wargaming. So I just really wanted to show the power of that on the screen. I wanted to show a group of people who have the shared love for a thing, who love each other, and dedicate so much of their lives to it. And that, to me, it was the compelling story and the thread that ties through the whole film. So once that kind of occurred to me, then I was able to hit the ground running, and I was to the races with it. So I feel like that was kind of a winding answer, but I hope that made sense.
No, that was good. And I mean, you hear all the time about people talking about like third places, right? Like, you know, you have your home, you have your work, you need a place to hang. And I think one of the really unique things about wargaming and this community is that you kind of get that third shared place, and you get that found family by playing games and throwing dice with each other. And that's really, when I watched this documentary, that's what it really captured to me. It was, you know, you focused on a meta in Jersey, the Mark Howard Dojo, but it really captured just how y'all are basically family. You know, you're friends, you're in each other's lives, you enjoy being with each other, and you know, kind of what brought everybody together was this game of, you know, throwing dice and moving around models and everything.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have gone through this journey in our gaming career where in the beginning, it's all about stacking wins. Like, that's kind of all we care about, is going X-1 or 5-0 at the tournament, going to the con and winning the con. And I think as we get older in the hobby, we all still really care about that, but it becomes pretty clear to all of us that the thing we care the most about is the people we see at the convention. It's the camaraderie we get at the tournament. So yeah, I just think like the more time you spend in the hobby, the more important that becomes.
It's why team events are so cool, right? Like, team events are the bomb because you get to hang out with all your buds, and there's more pressure. Like, I don't care if I win for myself. I really don't. My ego's not tied up in it. I want to have a beautiful game. I want to like just enjoy the process of playing War Machine and getting better, because climbing that mountain is really, really rewarding because the game is deep. But also, because the game is so deep, it can be very, very difficult for new players to get acclimated to the deepness of the pool, and a lot of them drown, right? And so what I would like us to see as a community is for us to wrap our arms around new players and help them get through that awkward stage. Sometimes I think we do a good job of it. Sometimes I think we don't. I mean, I famously played an Avatar against somebody with Defender's Ward, and against their Sigmar battle box, they literally couldn't damage it. I was like, well, that was kind of dumb. I was just trying to, I didn't have any regular jacks around. I was like, well, I could just throw this Avatar on the table. You just kill it, whatever, that's fine. I walked it up there, didn't do anything. He made a bunch of attacks, did nothing. I'm like, why did I cast Defender's Ward on this thing? Why did I put the Avatar on the list? I am so dumb. He never showed back up. The guy never showed back up. And I learned that day. I was like, okay, that was on me. And I think that's why content creators, one of the things we can do as a community is we can support them. And it's a little bit self-serving for me to say this because I am a content creator, but you know, if you guys can just like their videos or give them subscriptions so that it helps get the word out to other players, I think that's really important. It gives new players a place to kind of absorb some information without having to go through losing a game, you know, or having a negative play experience. It also lets people know that, hey, the game is coming back. I remember a time when War Machine was bigger than Games Workshop at every convention I went to. And it wasn't that long ago. It was not that long ago. It was not that hard. And we can recreate it as a group. We kind of have to punch the social network algorithms in the mouth a little bit and sort of get the momentum rolling, because it's at a great place right now. I see it building. I don't know if you guys agree. Do you see momentum building for War Machine right now?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, we're on the upswing.
Yeah. And on your point about your example with the Avatar, I feel like War Machine is a notoriously difficult game to showcase to new players, and it's very punishing. I mean, we always talk about how you need 100 games of War Machine before you can even hope to sniff winning games against really good players. So there's an element of that's on us, I think, to figure out how to teach the game and get new players started so that they're not just getting punched in the mouth over and over and over again.
Yeah, the other thing that content creators really help is people that are War Machine curious will go check out content on YouTube or wherever else they, you know, TikTok, or I don't know where people do content these days. I'm old. I'm like 50. Facebook maybe, to get a sense of what the game, what it plays like, what the community is like. And so one of the things we can do as content producers is really showcase the game for people so that people that are curious, they make that decision to jump in, to go to their local game night, to talk to some people, maybe buy some models, put some paint on some models. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show tonight. Do any of you guys consume content for War Machine? I'm curious.
No, not a bit. Totally joking. Yeah, I look at a couple of different channels. Lightbringers is being one of my favorites. Amusing Panda's pretty good, I hear. I like to listen to him on occasion. I'm actually, it's funny because being a member of the Old Guys Committee, I like my content written more than I do visual. So I'm all about blogs. That's the reason why I write the Boost to Hit blog, because I started doing that just as like something for myself. And also, when I started back up, a lot of people were asking about, like, I started with Infernals, and it was right near the beginning-ish of Mark IV, and a lot of people were like, what the hell does this army do? So I said, instead of answering the same question every single tournament or event, I'm just going to write a blog and give you a link and then go, here's what they do. Just like figure it out. And it kind of grew from there into like new player experience. I'm particularly focused on new and new-ish young blood, like the up and coming. You got through your first couple of games and you decided this is for you, and then you ran into Rich Owens and he smacked you in the face, that guy. So we need to figure out what to do about that, how you can start getting a little bit better, and also for like the returning players who are coming back going, well, I remember this in Mark 1. Yeah, it's Mark 4. Things changed a little bit. It's not going to work quite the same way you think, and you're still going to get punched in the face by Rich Owens. So I'm a big fan of like written content, and I'll be frank, I'd like to see more of it out there. There isn't a ton, and as much as I like video stuff, a lot of times I'll be either in between numerous calls or a lot of things in a day, and it's just good to have an article that I can just pull up. I'm making dinner, I'm relaxing a little bit, and I can just kind of browse through it and look. It doesn't require sound, it doesn't require like a lot of hard visual engagement to pay attention to. That's me personally.
Yeah, I brought up your blog. It's also linked in the show notes, Chris. There's a lot of great stuff for new players here. This is I don't know how you wrote this whole thing. I don't know.
I use my fingers.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. But it's
I write a lot for by trade. I've been in business development and bids and proposals for over 20 years. So I'm one of those weird guys that got an English degree and made a career out of it.
How about you, Danny? Are you consuming anything these days?
I am. So having recently returned to the game, having not played in a few years, I basically used all of the existing content to, get my feet wet again, right? Tried and True does battle reports. That's the Delaware crew. Watched a bunch of them just to see how the different armies played and, see what I would be interested in. Bunch of different podcasts. Battle Driven was around when I used to play. They're still around now. Great guides. Listen to that for the meta. And I mean, one of the cool things about content in general, and this isn't just War Machine content, but it's whether you're listening to a podcast about film or about F1, is that there are different types of content, right? So, one day if I really want the hardcore strategy, I can turn into something like using Panda, right? But if I really just want some lore, I'm sure there's a lore cast there that I can listen to learn all about, Rhineblood's lore or about 5th Division.
Absolutely. How about you, Rich? Are you listening to anything these days? Consuming any content?
Yeah, I've always loved video battle reports on YouTube. I used to be really into Arcane Assist back in the day when they were hammering those out like weekly.
Was that Banky and Evan? Is that right?
Yeah,
those guys were great.
In my opinion, they're like the best to ever put those out. But today, I discovered Tried and True, Delaware folks. They're doing great work in that space as well. I like to watch the guys. Their channel's called Dual Attack. They put up a lot of video battle reports, kind of in a different style than Tried and True, but I really enjoy watching their stuff too.
Moment of Clarity also puts out some pretty good stuff, and they are, I think, Swedish, and they're going to be streaming the WTC, so definitely check them out. I'll go back and edit the show notes later and add some links to some of these. For my part, I've been consuming all kinds of content because I don't know if you can tell, I got super excited about War Machine again. It was so weird because I thought I was done with it. I thought I didn't love it anymore. And then probably, if I'm being honest, in 2017, 2018, I did love it, but that was more about me personally than it was about the game. Maybe it was a little bit about Privateer Press. Maybe I'd taken on too much. I don't know exactly what it is. I haven't completely examined it within myself, but somebody talked me into playing War Machine again, and suddenly I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this game so much. What can I do? How am I going to do this? And I started trying to find content. It was actually kind of challenging to find content at first. I was like, where is everything? And I did find Tried and True, which was great. But I really wanted some deep analysis because I like to think about the game, and I had trouble finding it. I do know that like Dark Guidance is out there. They're pretty good. It's another Australian cast that I listen to. I listen to The Business. There's another one I was listening to for a while. They had some really good information, but what I noticed was a lot of content producers are sort of monthly, maybe. And I quickly burnt through anything that was relevant to what's going on today. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I started this stream, and for the record, this stream will be focused on strategy and tactics for War Machine and Hordes. We're taking a little bit of a different tack today because I think it's an important message. And I know that this probably won't get as many views as if we stayed in our lane, so to speak. But that's okay. I just think it's that important because we need to get the ball rolling down the hill, and we need everybody's help to do it. So I think one of the great things that content producers provide, and again, it really sounds self-aggrandizing. I really hate that about this particular topic, is that people can feel like they're a part of the community without ever having left their home yet or actually been a part of their community. So there were so many people when I did the Mies on Minis podcast that felt like they knew me, they knew Keith, they knew Chad, they knew Josh, and they'd be very comfortable to talk to us. And so they would have somebody when they went to a convention that they could go talk to and feel comfortable approaching and talking to. And I think that's important because it gives them an in, because then we as content producers can introduce them to other people. We can make them feel welcome, thank them for coming, thank them for listening, whatever. But it's a great magnet for the community to get people to come to events. And once people start going to events, we got them. Dude, it's over. They're going to be a player for War Machine for a long time because they're going to have such a great time. The community is going to be so good. The game is fantastic. Like if you want a game that rewards skill, which most people do, then yeah, it's over. We got them. So that's what we have to do. What do you guys think about that as a concept?
Yeah, I think you hit on a good point there, John, because you think about a lot of the bigger podcasts like Ringer or something like that, right? And you're never gonna meet those guys. The cool thing is about War Machine, I remember right TempleCon before the Colossos came out is I was in War Machine playing a couple weeks. I picked up Mies on Minis just because I was looking for something to listen to as well on my commute, and went to TempleCon with a friend, and my second round I was playing against Keith, and it was kind of a surreal experience. It was like this guy that I just stole my Crix list against playing now. So I think that one of the cool things about this community is you'll listen to somebody and then you'll be able to play with them, talk with them, and have a game with them at a convention.
I also think that a lot of us, when we start with a game, we start off in a little bit of like a gaming silo where maybe it's like 4 of us pick up War Machine and we start playing. And then the second you find content online and you find a podcast, your mind is kind of blown because you find like a whole wider world ecosystem where people play the game. And I remember when that happened to me when I was listening to Mies on Minis back in the day, and I realized, oh wait, there are hundreds of people, thousands of people all over the world that play this game. Like, it was really important for me to learn that, to kind of push me to going to conventions and playing even more than I already was.
And as soon as you went to a convention, right, you were hooked for life. That's kind of how it works.
I can't quit it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's different. Some people who have only played War Machine and Hordes might think to themselves, it's the same in 40K. It's not. It's similar. It's not. It's the same in whatever, Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh! It definitely isn't, I promise. Like, you try to talk to somebody after your round, like, hey, we should go get a coffee. That was a great game. I had a great time. They'd be like, I'm busy. Oh, sorry, dude. I wasn't trying to pick you up. I promise. I literally just was excited about the game we played, wanted to talk about it, But if you play a War Machine game, I promise you, and you say, hey, can I buy you a drink? Can we just go talk about our game? They're going to be like, yeah, let's go. It's just a different type of community, and we need to highlight that for people so that people understand that they're getting into something a little bit different,
I think that if you get top of two, it's your opponent's obligation to at least buy you dinner.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Which I have not got dinner bought for me yet, and I have got Tapatude a whole bunch. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced Azeroth is flammable. I've had two fire rolls. I've had 2 fire rolls on that guy. This past weekend, the nice lady who lit him on fire rolled a 12 on 2 dice to kill him.
He died to fire?
Yes, and the weekend 2 weeks ago at Chris's tournament, the Bill, the nice guy, rolled an 11 on 2 dice to kill him. And I'm just like, okay. He's flammable. I can't let him get lit on fire anymore. And somebody was nice enough to say, hey, John, why don't you play Put the Fires Out? I do play Put the Fires Out. The stupid Wyvern Animus doesn't allow it to happen. It can't go out. So they get to roll no matter what. And he just burns up. But it kind of makes lore sense. He's undead. So,
It is how you do it.
He's a vampire.
Sorry to tangent. It just was bothering me and I had to get it off my chest.
He's a big, beefy boy, too. He should be dying to fire.
He's died to fire twice.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It is my life.
So since we're on the tangent, I know you're going to be speaking a little more about this, John, but you were talking about, getting back into War Machine. And I heard you flew across the country to play in a team event last week. Is that true?
That is true. Alex was like, hey, what are you doing in 2 weeks? I'm like, I don't know, probably my wife. And then he said, I was wondering if you wanted to come to Portland. I'm like, why would I want to go to Portland? Well, there's this team tournament and we just lost 2 players and we could really use somebody. And I'm like, let me check with my wife. I've been to tournaments for 2 weekends in a row. I'm pretty sure she's going to say no, but I'll check with her. My wife is the best woman on the planet. If I was a good husband, I wouldn't have asked her. But I'm not a good husband. I really wanted to go play with those guys because they're awesome. I got to play with Brandon Owens, Eric. Who else was on our team? Alex, myself, and Justin do. It was a killer team. We won the event, but I didn't win anything. I was the guy with tire tracks over his head the whole day, so that was cool. They threw me under the bus though. They were just like, whatever you guys don't want to play, just put me into it. It's fine. Whatever. So, but yeah. And next week, I think Brandon Owens said he might jump on. Alex will be back. I'm going to see if I can talk Eric into jumping on, and we'll give you guys a full event report. It was an excellent event. Dragon's Fury, Dragon's Wrath out in Portland, Oregon. I highly recommend if you're in the area, go to the team tournament next year. JC and Chad ran a top-notch event. It was so awesome. And like I said, team events are the best. So if you ever want to get me to come to your event, if it's a team event, you're much more likely to get me to show up. I'm just saying,
And John doesn't even have to know you. I heard that you thought it was a different Brandon who invited you to that.
I did. Yeah. I was like, actually, I was a little nervous. I thought it was Brandon Andrews because it was the only Brandon I knew from before. They said he'd like played before and was a really good player. I'm like, oh, Brandon Andrews is really good. But I didn't remember that Brandon Andrews had a different name than wasn't Owens. And then he showed up for breakfast. And I was like, oh, wow, you got a really deep tan. And for some reason, your hair is really curly and not blonde anymore. It's black. So we had a good laugh about that. We did. It was a good time.
That's funny. I love team events. They really are the best.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just tangent for a second. One of the things you can do to really get really stuck into the game is find your tribe, find your locals, go to team events with them. Actually, you could just travel to regular SRs with them. That's really fun. The car ride is fun. Start reaching out a little more regionally. But you guys should go to every 3-man team tournament and then try to add a couple more and go to some 5-man. It doesn't matter how well you do. Just the idea of the shared experience of a team event will bond you together in a way that I can't really explain except to tell you that you will love it and you will absolutely want to do more of it.
Absolutely.
Other great thing about team events, a lot less rounds.
It's a great thing for some people. I don't know. I still like the 7-round melees that we used to have.
You are crazy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, pants on head stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I will never play 7 rounds of a War Machine. I could be 6-0. Actually, probably 5-0. Probably 5-0 drop is where I'm like, okay, I'm done. I've had enough.
Maybe let's go.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
5 is my limit.
It is mine for sure.
4 or 5 is actually my limit now, as much as I like those older melees that we used to have back in the old TempleCon days, where it's like you do your tournament during the day, you grab a quick dinner, and then you do Midnight Madness, and then you're up until 6 a.m. and you're probably sleeping for 2 hours on or under the table. That's up to you. But the room was too far away at that point. I remember, speaking of tangents, one of those rounds that we were so tired, my opponent and I, it was the last round that we literally just stripped our casters of focus, turned them around, and ran butt first at each other, just so to see who could kill their caster first, or their opponent's caster first. And both of us just kept failing. Like, we could not seal the deal, so we couldn't go to bed. It was like 4:30 in the morning. All we wanted to do was just go to sleep, but we were too proud to drop.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
I understand. So I guess we've talked probably enough about content creation. I can go into a lot of details about content creation sometime if people would like. Just put it in the comments if you want me to talk about that. Or conversely, if you'd like, if you are a content producer, you just want some advice, I talk to anyone. I give advice that is worth exactly what you paid for it, because I'm not going to charge you for it. I'm just going to tell you what I know, what I've learned based on my experience. I've done a lot of content. I mean, Muse was a lot of content. I did the Art of War podcast. I'm doing this now. Live streaming is new, so I don't know as much about it. Obviously, which you can see with the way we stumble. No audio. I'll have to figure out what I did there. I'm sure I screwed something up pretty good. But so yeah, and just to, I guess just to say, you can support your content producers. Just give them likes and subscriptions. You don't have to spend any money with them. You know, a lot of them are doing it as a labor of love. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna ask Rich this question, but I already know the answer. You didn't make that documentary to make money, right, Rich?
No. Nope. That
And it was a lot of work.
in the community.
Yeah, right. It was a lot of work, I assume.
Yep. It was.
Yeah, the quality of it. Yeah, the quality of it shows. The editing, just everything. The videography, the lighting. I mean, there's. I dabble, all right, and I can see how much work is in about 2 minutes of that. You know, so.
Appreciate it. I got to show it at a few film festivals around the country, and it was really cool to see some fellow nerds and miniature gamers come out of the woodwork to come out and support the film. So, yeah, anything you can throw towards people who are making content in the space that you are passionate about goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. And it also tells YouTube to show it to other people, which might attract more players. And more players is what we need, because if there's more players, there's more people spending money at SFG. If SFG gets more money, they're going to be more financially stable. If they're more financially stable, they're going to produce more war. They're going to get a signal that, like, oh, we should produce more War Machine. We should get better at making models. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm sure it's on their radar, but you know, I'm sure they're upping production now as it is, because it's getting a little silly trying to get models. But yeah, it's only plus EV for everyone involved. There's no downside to just liking some content and some subbing or following or whatever the case may be. All right, I said my piece.
Hey, Rich, where can they find Cult of Nerd?
Yeah, so it's on my website, but it's also the easiest way is to search Crafty Films on YouTube. That's the short film platform that's hosting the film right now. So if you search either Cult of Nerd or Crafty Films, it'll be easy. It'll come right up on YouTube. It's approaching 100,000 views right now, so it's not hidden.
It's crazy. Awesome.
I know.
It is awesome. Let me see if I can get this to show up a little better. Yeah, if you can see here, Crafty Films, this is where I found it. And that's also, this is linked in the show notes, so if you want to get to it, you certainly can. All right. Let's move on. The next subject, which is tangentially related, and then maybe we'll talk about some War Machine after that, is you don't have to be a content creator to build community. You don't have to be a press ganger. You don't have to do anything special other than play War Machine. There's a few things you should keep in mind. Chris, why don't you jump in here and kind of let's walk through how you take a player under your wings, or how when you encounter a new player, what's a good way to approach that?
The first thing you want to do is positivity goes a hell of a long way. Your own excitement and your passion for the game and for the community really goes a long way to selling a new player on this. You want to get them excited. You want to get them interested. The game's fun. It is super fun. So if we're taking just a brand new player off the street and they want to learn more about it, having a handy like elevator pitch, if you're interested in building community, never a bad idea to have like 3 to 5 sentences. Give me 20 words that explain why this is cool, like it just in your back pocket, ready to go. Old fundraising technique, just be able to explain the thing that you're trying to sell as succinctly as possible, which I'm doing a terrible job of right now. And then, be genuinely enthusiastic, be positive about it. Walk them through a game. Actually, I have to find the link, but Jamie Perkins, one of SFG's developers, had a wonderful little intro scenario that he would do for a brand spanking new player. That was basically like, you have a 30-point army, or just not even like 30 point, just you have like a little battle box army, and then he would have a colossal, like a Garlgast or something, and he'd just disable one side of it so that it was kind of like gimpy. And he'd walk through like, hey, here's how units move, here's how warjacks move, this is what focus or fury does, here's what boosting does, like the base mechanics of the game. And then he'd explain like, well, I'm not at full power right now, and here's the scenario, you've cornered my big monstrosity, and now it's time to seal the deal. Can you do it before I get you? And he would take like unoptimized turns like the Garlgast to just kind of sit there and wouldn't move, and you're letting the new player pilot the army around so they can see how the pieces move. They see all of the different rules interplaying, and they also get this cool cinematic experience. That's why I liked it. You're killing kaiju, like you're killing big stompy robots or a big monster, like the kind of one of the big selling points of the game. It's on all the promotional materials, all of the big monsters, the big robots, the fantasy, like that scenario sells it really well. And as the demo player, you're gonna lose. You've got a half-killed colossal against the 30-point force, and you're not doing too much to it. You don't have a warcaster or a warlock. You have no way to boost or anything like that. So you're just kind of sitting there getting pounded on. But it doesn't matter. I mean, what you're trying to do is you're selling the excitement. So that, like, as an intro game, I saw that and I'm like, what a cool freaking scenario. Like, you can have that on a 2x2 table. You can have that in a bag ready to go. Someone's like, I've never played this. This sounds cool. What's this like? It's like, you got 15 minutes? I'll show you. It doesn't have to be a long game. You want to get them engaged quickly and just get them a little hooked on that. Just be like, and tell them like, hey, the game gets bigger. You show other people's tables. They see all the army on army combat, people measuring things out and going at each other. That sells it too. But this just gives them that real tactile feel right off the bat. Gets them hooked immediately, and they want to learn more.
Yeah, the other thing you can do too is you can just have that scenario set up in your bag with painted models. Make sure they're painted. They don't have to be, but if they're painted, it's better.
It should be. If you're interested in doing demos, I'm like the world's worst painter, and I absolutely hate it. But they should be painted. You want to sell the game.
How about you, Rich? What advice would you have for someone that is running into somebody that's War Machine curious or a new player?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people get into the game for the competitive side of it. And that's not, I wouldn't say that for miniature gaming in general. I wouldn't dissuade someone from playing if hobby is their primary focus, obviously. But I just think War Machine, most of the people that I see and experience that get into the game get into it because of the tight rule set. So I would do everything I can to foster someone's growth in the game in that direction. Like, it's just really hard to get into a game when you lose like your first 30 matches. So one of my least favorite things to see when people get into the game is when people just pound them into dust right from the start. So I think you just gotta hold someone's hand a little bit when they're getting into the game, and you gotta walk them through things. And even though it sucks for you as a player who may have played for years and years, you have to kind of, take 4 hours to show them the game and walk them through the steps and talk through it every turn, and maybe not even play a real game of War Machine for like 20 games as you're walking through things.
How about you, Danny? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what Rich was saying. I think it's important to, just straight up ask them, what are you looking for in War Machine? Like, why are you interested in this game, right? If, speaking from experience, I've had some friends join because they thought the models looked wanted to play big stomping robots. Those guys are practically, okay, playing a battle box game. We have a warcaster, we have 2 robots, and we'll go at it, and I'll try to, make cool scenarios, make cool narrative things happen, right? I have somebody else who just got into the game who has played Age of Sigmar, has played TCGs, and he's a very different audience, right? He's like, I want to compete, I want to be really good at this game. So our first game was a 100-point game. It took about 5 hours to walk through and do everything, but that was very compelling to him, to see all of the different synergies on the table, to see how scenario worked. So I think that really you just need to be unselfish, to ask the person what they're interested in, what excites them about War Machine, and then be willing to provide that experience. Because at the end of the day, whether if you're for the narrative, whether if you're for competitive, more players is a better community, is a better experience for everyone here.
I also think that War Machine is in such a great place right now because the game has never been easier to get into. I think especially like at the end of the last edition, it was like impossible to explain to someone how to get into War Machine, like how to buy an army, even where to start. But now I think Steamforged has done a really good job of making these starter boxes and simplifying the game so it's so much easier to draw someone in and tell them what they need to do.
Yeah, just tangentially, I have noticed that owning an army is a lot cheaper proposition now. It's significantly cheaper than going with GW, which I mean is a little bit of a misnomer because you're gonna end up owning like 6 armies. Well, if you're like me, you probably will, or maybe all of them. That's a possibility. Probably gonna happen. Now that I think about it, but
No
yeah, it's just
an old number.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how much cheaper the game is now and how much more accessible it is. The Mark IV conversion was a very, very, very smart thing to do. Now we can argue about whether it was done well. I've heard strong opinions on that from some people, but yeah, I think it was a good thing for the game for a lot of reasons. So, Chris, why don't you talk about how you maybe encourage participation?
Well, let's define what you mean by encourage participation.
Get somebody to come to their game night, get somebody to come to their first tournament, get somebody to travel with you to a regional event. So there's 3 different things you can do. Yeah.
All right. So we're dealing with someone who's had a couple of games and is, got the itch a little bit, but they probably ran into the thing that we all did. I remember my first convention was a team tournament. I do love those as well. And our team went it was a 3-man tournament, 5 rounds, and our team went at whopping 1-14. I was the one win. So, but we all had such a blast. And what got us out was, I hyped everyone, my couple of friends up to get out there because, and this is something that I covered in the Boost Hit blog, like our first learning the game article was kind of reframing what your goals in a game are. It's not about winning and losing. You kind of touched on that about earlier with the reason we go to conventions and we go to tournaments. We want to go 5-0. We want to get that undefeated. That's super cool, but that's not the goal. When you're starting out, I mean, let's be real. If you do anything in life where somebody has been doing this for 15 years and you've been doing it for 15 hours, they're probably going to be better than you. Unless you're a genius, unless you're an absolute savant here, they're going to be better than you. That's okay. They can be better than you. Reframing the game away from winning and losing and setting your goal priorities to a different set than just victory or not victory or losing, winning or losing. Reframe what winning and losing means to you. So an example, when I get back in,
I like to frame it as learning.
Yeah.
Did you learn something?
The thing that I framed for myself was I don't want to lose on clock. I didn't care what my record was. I went to Boca Brawl last year. Didn't care if I went 0-5 or 0-9. My goal was I don't want to lose on clock. I want to improve that aspect of how I'm playing right now. And I didn't go 0-9. I definitely didn't go 9-0. But I never lost on clock. So in my mind, I won every single game I played because I set a goal, I went and I hit it. And that can be transcribed to anything. You go to your first tournament. I want to learn where not to stand. So I'm going to do stupid things, or I'm going to play as I think I need to play. I'm a newer player. I would encourage a newer player, get used to making bold decisions and getting punished for them. And then get used to making too passive decisions and getting punished for those. And then we can talk about what that happy medium is.
All right, Rich, you want to jump in there? Do you have anything you want to add?
My gears have been turning. I actually had one more point about what we were talking about just before this. Can
bring
I
it
have
up.
something on that?
Yep.
I just wanted to add, you're talking about how the game is so much cheaper now, but I also just think it's so much simpler to get into. Consider last edition if someone wanted to play Circle, and the Circle list was this really oddball mix of mercenary models, certain models in the Circle faction that you wouldn't take in other lists, and then imagine explaining that to a new player. But now all you have to do is you buy an army box, buy one of the ancillary boxes, one of the cadres, and you have a competitive list, by and large. And War Machine was just so impenetrable last edition, and I feel like they've done such a good job of narrowing it down, making it so much simpler to get into. And I was I know from my experience so far in the past year, it's so much easier to explain to people who want to get into the game, what War Machine even is. It was just a labyrinth before. Anyway, that's all I wanted to ask.
No, it's a great point. And the great thing about it is, I think the important thing you said is they don't get blown out and they don't feel bad for what they bought, right? Because they bought something that's probably imminently playable. It may not be what's considered best at this time, but a lot of times I kind of disregard that anyway, especially for new players. It's
best only matters if you want to compete in the absolute upper echelons. You're fine tuning good to great to perfect at that point. Anyone starting out, balance of Mark IV is better than I've ever seen balance in this game. If you pick a new army, a Mark IV army out there, pick it on look, pick it on how it plays on the table. You don't need to worry about if it's good. I promise you, there is good stuff in it. It may not be everything, but you will find good stuff. That's true in any army. Even the worst armies are still heads and shoulders better than the worst armies were in Mark 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. Totally.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to switch in there. My bad. Okay, so actually, I want to build on that point a little bit. I actually have not found many unplayable models in the entire range. Almost none. I can't even think of any. I can find a use for almost every model, and a lot of that is a lot of the support also beats face, which is definitely a design consideration, which I find interesting. For example, Seeker Adepts in Dusk, they empower our Jacks. They can give them exorcism. They can heal D3 or D3+1 on a warrior model. All three, you really put them in there for empower, but they're also Rat 6, POW 12, Reach, Chargers. POW 12 is plenty good to get some stuff done. You put Battle Lust on those little guys and it gets embarrassing for your opponent really, really fast. Really fast. So, that's what I mean. It's hard to find. It's actually kind of hard to build a really bad list. You can build an unfocused list, but most of the models do something. And if they do something, you can play the game. So that's just my opinion. But
there are definitely class models out there that exist to make me sad. That's what they do.
Don't be so negative. We talked about
that.
Not
negative. You clearly have not played a Winter Core Mortar before.
They're only 2 points, right?
Yeah.
It's 2 points of sadness.
Feels like by and large, every model has a purpose.
Yeah.
New edition. Which is good.
At the very least, I had a Winter Core Mortar in my Yana list because I had 2 points and I was playing on Sunday. And I knew exactly what it was going to do. It's going to hold a cache, or it's going to hold objective terrain, and it's going to fire its gun that's not going to do anything. And I'm not going to care about that gun if it does something neat, but it is still doing something on the table. Joking about it aside, it's still 2 points to have scenario presence. There is nothing that is unplayable, nothing that is an active detriment to your list by taking it. I don't know that I would max force allowance on them and mechanics. don't even know who has that really, but there isn't anything. You can find a use case for almost anything in the game right now, even the Storm Legion sharpshooter.
I mean, yeah, a 2-point model is a great thing to run and contest with. You really give it away 2 points. So, just saying, maybe, might be stretching a little bit. The other thing I think is really cool about the army boxes is it just gives retailers a way to get in without overcommitting. The biggest problem with War Machine was the range was way too big, and retailers just couldn't stock it. Like, there just was no way.
And the models that they did stock, because we ran into a lot of that down here in Maryland. A lot of it, I mean, yeah, John, you're experiencing that because you're down here, but Maryland has a ton of game stores just kind of spread throughout the state, and a lot of them used to stock War Machine. Most of the ones that stock models stocked War Machine. They couldn't move their stock though. Like it just got to a point where you had stuff sitting on the shelves for, I'm not kidding, 10 years. And it never went anywhere. So it created a real problem where they didn't have room for the new stuff, and they couldn't move the old stuff. And then, hijinks ensued when it came time to like distributor changes and things and privateers. And it left a bad taste in a lot of retailers' mouths. And we're seeing a renaissance around here, a slow one. More stores are definitely picking it up. Adepticon super helped, but it's still not back to what it was. But I have seen like Privateer made conscious changes, and Steam Force has just kept that ball rolling in lowering that SKU flow. It was bad. The range was not feasibly stockable, and so much stuff just sat.
The other thing they're doing, which is really interesting, is game stores can refer people to the web store, and game stores get, I think, a 40% cut of anything that is bought through the web store. So if you're going to order something from SFG and you play at a local game store, you're ordering it anyway, go use their link, right? And support your game store. It doesn't cost you anything. This is another way you could support your game store. You could just ask them for their link, and there you go. Hey, look, we got a wild Daniel Riker.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, Danny boy, how you doing, buddy? Congratulations. Looks like you did real well down in Tennessee, dude. We're happy to see it.
He made that look easy.
Repping that org off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he always makes it look easy. Actually, I've been pretty impressed. I watched Riker play a game, and he has come a long ways as a player. Like I really respect the way he plays now. I mean, he was way into planning for future turns and really knew what was up and really had a great game plan and really executed well, and all the marks of just a really, really top-notch player. So it was a joy to watch him play. It was really cool. Had to watch him lose, but that's because Huxley is not remotely fair. I do not understand how anything can have repo 5. It doesn't compute to me that they would even print that they would even think this is probably okay. Repo 5, fine. Like, what could possibly go wrong? How about everything? Everything, literally everything. Anyway, tangent over. Apologies.
Yeah, that caster was so bad when it was released, and then they just turned the dial like that.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Let's see. One of the things I think is important with new players is not to crap on their ideas. So if they bring you a list and they're really excited about it, a good thing you can do is, number one, I almost always ask, do you want some advice? Sometimes they don't want advice. Sometimes they just want to show you something that they're really proud of. And then you could just say, well, if you'd like some advice, I wouldn't change too much. I try to keep it less than maybe 10 points to change. You might do this instead of this, but I can see what you're trying to do here. I think it'll be fun. Go try it out. Let me know how it goes. You know what I mean? Because the last thing you want to do is make somebody feel like they have bad ideas, or that they're, you know what I mean? Or that they're ignorant. Let them learn that on their own. They'll figure out pretty quickly, like, oh, okay, that didn't work. I probably should do something different. But it's good for them to learn that, have the game teach them that, than just to be told that, because it's a real bummer when you get excited about something and then somebody just kind of craps on your dream. You're just like, that doesn't work. You'll just lose. Like, thanks, buddy.
I go through a lot of this with my brother, who got back into playing about the same time that I did. He and I bounce lists off each other pretty often. And so the first question I ask is not, do you want some advice? Like somebody hits me with a new list and I look at it and internally I'm like, I just assume that I'm missing something. So I just ask them like, so what's the goal behind this list? What are you looking to do? And just have them explain it to me in their own words. And if there's areas that I think could be tuned up or anything like that, then I'm like, have you considered like this? But again, we want to drive towards the theme. Like you said, John, you don't want to crush new players' ideas. Heck, there have been plenty of times where I've looked at a list and I'm like, that'll never freaking work. Have fun, dude. And then it tables me and I'm like, so I'm an idiot. Cool. But I've learned something now that, maybe I should swallow my own pride and understand that just because it's new and untested and it's not known, it doesn't mean it's bad outright. You could be missing something too, or it could just totally blindside you. You didn't see all of the moving components. Even a new player can have good ideas, like totally can have good ideas, and you can mine them for those good ideas and collectively get better. But like I always go for the, what's your goal here? What are you trying to do? And then ask them leading questions like, if you want to give them advice, ask them a leading question about like, do you think this thing that you have a problem with, do you think that's getting to that goal? And they can say, yeah. And you'll be like, how's it doing it? I'm not getting it. And they explain it to you and you go, cool, let it go. Or they might stop and go, oh, wait, that doesn't actually do that. And so you're kind of more positively leading them towards like improving their list without, like you said, like without telling them that, they have a bad idea or something like that.
Yeah. The last thing we want to create is like kind of a this game is solved kind of feeling for people. We want people to explore it on their own because that's the fun of the game. Like, sure, winning conventions is technically fun, but it's also super fun to like go play at a good convention, get your face stomped on, and learn all about how bad your ideas were. That could also be super fun, in my opinion. I don't know, Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, I think kind of related to that, it's really easy and typical as competitive players to immediately try to steer someone to like this sort of solved version of said caster. And I think really what we just want to make sure of is a newer player has a list that functions and makes sense. Like if they want to run 10 warjacks, run 10 warjacks, but we're going to make sure you have the requisite support so that 10 warjacks function the way they should. So I think it's really important to kind of like not make a new player feel like they have to play the solid version of whatever caster they're working on.
Now, right before they changed Dark Operations, my brother approaches me with this Exelon Thexus list. That's all of the Steelhead artillery, by the way. Super sad that that's not usable anymore. It took us like a year to get those. Some shady deals from Australia aside. And I looked at that, and that's my brother. So I immediately was like, this is never going to work, dude. This is never going to work. And he played at the tournament on Sunday, and he absolutely stomped on Shadow Flame Shark with it. It was brilliant. And I'm like, well, look at me. I'm eating crow here. It was just wacky and fun. But, sometimes those lists, they actually work into the right matchups, and it's cool when you find them.
Totally.
Yeah. And then also, I think somebody, and it might have been you, Chris, I'm not sure, I apologize, but somebody made a really good point, which was having new eyes to see things in the game is actually really powerful and valuable, and we need people with new eyes to like help us explore because it could challenge our beliefs and what we think. Because number one, the meta's always changing. SR changes every year, models change every year, new models are released all the time, and maybe something we wrote off a month ago, a year ago, whatever, is now really good, but we haven't really thought about it. And a new player can bring it to the forefront and you'd be like, oh yeah, that is dope. I actually hadn't thought about it that way. And that's a new perspective. And so you have to create a comfortable space for new players to be able to bring things up. Because what will happen is if you just poo-poo all their ideas, they just won't share them with you, right?
You risk them getting disengaged from the game overall. If you're like that, what are other people going to be like? You want to keep them engaged, you want to keep them excited. They can have an idea that isn't super strong, and they go and they get their face stomped, but it was their idea, and they went into it and they're like, well, crap, that didn't work, and then you can build them up afterwards a little bit, like, well, not everything didn't work. What did work? What went well? What do you think felt good about that? And then 90% of it might have been an absolute dumpster fire. That happens, but 10%, I'll salvage 10% in the learning experience. That's fine. you will find something like usable in any game. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah, also, I learned a long time ago. I'm just going to share my opinion on this, but there's a lot of things that are quote unquote solved or known that just is not true. It's just not true. I'm sorry. It just isn't true. And you just need somebody to go and prove a point and change it. Change people's opinions.
Case in point, like a lot of people in February or so, I mean, Riker will know this, that Horus was considered solved. Like the absolute quintessential build was out there. This is just what everybody's playing. This is what you play for Horus. And, you know, at Boker Brawl, I saw, I don't know, 6 different variants of a Horus list. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what anyone's doing anymore. It's all different. None of this is solved. So that was a load of crap. Like, I agree with you. Nothing is solved.
Yeah, but even I'm going to tangent onto Longshanks a little bit. You have to be careful about relying too much on Longshanks data, especially for new players, because if they decide they like a caster and the caster has a low win percentage, it doesn't matter. You can't you shouldn't play that caster. Look at their win percentage on Longshanks. Like, that's terrible advice for a new player. You don't want them going to have the stats drive what they want to do, because I mean, there's so many problems with Longshanks data in that it's such a small set. Like, sometimes we're talking about 20 games with the caster. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, that caster only has a 30% win percentage, but you put 2 good players on that caster and suddenly, oh, what do you know? It's now got a 65% win percentage or something silly. You know, the data is just so sometimes meaningless because the sample size, and other times there's a little bit too much dogma that drives it because people use it to make decisions. So
you also, with Longshanks, you have a lot of online leagues that are rated on Longshanks, and you know, I know a lot of people in the competitive community. We use the war table leagues to just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. You know, these are really good players trying out wacky ideas outside of, you know, the pressure of a steamroller or a team tournament or a convention environment. You know, because there's no stakes to competing in this. You're sitting in your own home. You spend your internet connection for the month, you know, your internet bill. That's what you're spending in order to play. So it doesn't have the same kind of same kind of pressure. So people get wild. Like, you see some wild, wacky lists in these leagues. I would encourage people to play them just because it's a great way to play outside of your meta, meet new people, and also just try out just crazy stuff in a real low stakes environment.
So adding to that a little bit, one thing that I see a lot of people doing is playing a lot of War, right? And it's great. It's an amazing tool. You can get a lot of games and you don't have to set up a table. You can try any army you want. That's all great stuff. But we're talking about building a community here, and I think that there's nothing better than finding your local game store, talking to them, and trying to arrange a night where, hey, I'm playing War Machine every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I'll be here for Buddy. I'll be here with some demo factions, whatever. I think that's really important, because you're not going to attract new players by playing online. You're not going to attract new players by playing in your basement. You're going to attract new players by setting up really cool boards, by having fun, and by having people walk through the game store, see what you're playing, and ask you questions.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys a question that I've been kind of thinking about lately, because I have noticed that I think the 1 hour clock is a detriment to War Machine tournaments. I understand why we do it. I think it should be at least an hour 10 or an hour 15. And the reason why I say that is War Machine gets so sloppy when it's low clock, and having less of that would be better. It also creates a much better tournament experience for new players because they're just going to take more time to do things. And it adds a little bit to tournament time, but I would rather see more tournaments with 3 rounds and a top table. You know, the last 2 players can just play it out, whatever they'll want to, because they want to win. Than playing 4-round tournaments so that we use the 1 hour clocks. I don't know. What do you guys think of 1 hour clocks? Do you think it's plenty of time, or do you think it's a little tight?
I think it's a good amount of time, honestly. I think any amount of time that you give to competitive players, they're going to use it. So if you give them an hour and 30, I still think that turn 7, people are going to be scrambling and moving really fast, because instead of taking 10 minutes on their turn 1, they're going to take 15, right? So So to me, at least in this edition, an hour has felt sufficient. I'd argue, maybe in third edition, when you're pushing around more models, it felt a little too little. But now it's felt good for me at least.
Personally, I've heard both sides of the argument, and I think I agree with John. And I've thought for years that I would love the game to add 10 minutes and have 70-minute clocks. Previous to War Machine, I was playing a game called Kings of War for a couple of years, just because that's what my gaming group had moved on to for a little bit. And much simpler game, less activations, but the 70-minute clock just felt like it just added a little bit more. I don't know. The game just felt easier. It felt a little bit more relaxed, and I missed that.
I do think it adds. That's okay, and I'll get right back to you. But I think one of the things you have to think about is it's very good for newer players to have a little extra time, and it will make it more approachable. Tournaments will be more approachable for people in general if we add that time. Just my opinion.
What I was going to say is that we have to remember why Death Clock was actually put in the game in the first place. Like, it evolved from time turns, which I don't miss going back to that because that had its own problems, namely players sandbagging for advantage so that they got functionally more turns or you got fewer. Which is not very fun. Death Clock puts the onus on you, but the reason the clock exists is not to create a pressure win-loss state for either player. It's to keep a tournament moving in, an orderly fashion, in a timely fashion. It's so that you can say dice are at 10 and this event's going to end at 8 because we understand that we have families, lives, and things that we need to do external to this. So that's what a clock is supposed to do. Like, I don't particularly care if it's 60 or 75 minutes. I do agree that 60 is maybe a little pinched. I can play it, fine. I'm happy to. And honestly, I love playing the sub 5-minute clock. It's, adrenaline inducing. It's a lot of fun. It can get sloppy to your point, John, but also it's really cool when you just cleanly nail that win right under the wire. It's like a great experience.
Yeah, but the game changes, right? It turns into not War Machine. It's something else. I don't know what to call it. But if both players are under sub 5 minutes, the tenor in the game is a completely different game. It
definitely turns into move model slap clock. That's for sure.
Yeah, it gets really weird. To me, it's weird. I would rather have enough time the games could finish in an appropriate manner. And I understand your point, Danny. I agree with you. People will use all of the time given to them, but I would like less games going to sub 5-minute clocks, because if there was 15 more minutes less, it would just happen less often. I promise you it would, because there is there's just a certain amount of time it takes to roll dice and make attacks, and that's kind of where most of the time goes. To be honest, there's not that much time staring at models for most people.
Well, and I would also argue War Machine is such an intricate game that we spend half the time placing proxy bases and very carefully measuring models, and there's no real way to eliminate that. It's just a part of the game. So the way to ease that sort of burden that we have to face with the precision would be to just give us a little bit more time.
Yeah, I agree. Because the proxy base and the proper measurements goes out the windows too, actually, in those scenarios. I mean, the game turns into just running models and slapping the clock back and forth and like maybe attacking one model, but you're just like, well, this doesn't feel like War Machine anymore. That's all I was saying. I think if we added a little bit of time and had less rounds in tournaments, maybe we played more team tournaments, maybe that's the way to go. Yeah, it's just a thought I had watching games this weekend, playing games. It just sort of occurred to me. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts because I thought it was a good discussion.
So I'm gonna call John out a little bit here, but let me ask you this. So two Saturdays ago, we went to an event, and we played, and one of the things that I saw you doing, John, is you were deploying off the clock for your first, right? How much extra time did that give you? Do you feel like that was a really relaxed experience? Having that full 60 minutes to play out your turns, because that's something else. Like, I know that war table, right? Everybody's always off the clock before the clock starts.
Oh, not hearing you, John.
No sound, John.
I put it on mute because I had to cough. And I have one coming. Hold on. Anyway, yes, if we deployed off the clocks, that would functionally do a lot of it. Although my deployment has gotten to be where it's about 2 minutes or a minute and a half, typically. I've gotten comfortable enough with that. So the only reason why we deployed off the clock in that first round, it was Devil Squid. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Jan and I were playing, and we were just like, whatever. We're just gonna do it like this. And I'm sure Chris was annoyed, but we actually finished in plenty of time. So
No, not remotely, because that goes back to what I said. The clock is just there to keep the event moving. I'm always a little iffy of deploying off the clock, only because, hey, I love talking to my opponents too. But you can get John, and then 15, 20 minutes later, you haven't set up a model, and like everybody's on to turn 2. You are going to be holding the event up at that point. So
no, I get that. That's why I want to go to 75-minute clocks, though, because if you're a new player, like setting up the scenario takes longer, figuring out how to deploy takes longer. You know what I mean? And then if you just die on turn 2 because it takes longer, you have to look up all your stats, right? Yeah, you're always looking things up. You're always asking questions because you don't know what their stuff is or what they're, you don't have all of that recall. So a little extra time for newer. I'm actually going to run a tournament as an experiment and see how it goes, because I just don't like the way War Machine looks under Death Clock, under Short Clock. I think it's not a good game, in my opinion.
To play devil's advocate, though, a lot of games have that problem. I mean, even chess has that problem. Chess ceases to look like chess at the end of most chess games.
I agree 100%. So that's why I want to avoid having as much of that as we can. But yeah, there are limitations. You do have tournament play and everything else, right? So I get it. Okay. Well, last thing I want to talk about is when you have new players, you should drag them to events kicking and screaming. A lot of them will be afraid to go. They will think it's not for them. Oh my gosh, somebody take the baton for me, please.
No, you're fine. But it's a really good idea. Like, just get new players involved, and sometimes you just have to bring them with you. Make space in your room. Pack an army for them. Do what you can just to like lower that threshold. Get them to something and get them, because it gets them enmeshed in the community. I'll tell you, that's where the hook is going to be. It was super cool to get my brother back out to Poker Brawl. He hadn't been several years, and he had an absolute blast. I can't wait for the next one. He's going to Nova with me. We're on a team this September, so it's gonna be a blast. And it's just playing against new players and just having a really good time and a really great experience. So grab someone. Get your buddy and just go. Don't worry too much about it. Go have a good time.
I think, one important thing to do is, when you're taking a new player, maybe somebody who just joined your local game store, is really take them under the wing at that convention and, check in on them. Because, of course, you're very excited. Maybe some toys and everything. After every round, I'm going to go to that new player and I'm going to say, how'd your round go? Or what are you excited about? And just make sure that they feel engaged, included the whole time, because they're probably going to be losing a lot of the games. So anything you can do to kind of lessen that, is good.
I don't know what happened, Danny, but your mic suddenly got a lot better. I don't know if you moved it or what. There was like a loud bang.
I don't. So it's like thunderstorming like crazy here. So my internet's going in and out. So I'm not sure. But I'm glad to hear it's working better now.
Well, you were cutting out like a minute ago, so that's good. Okay. We got about 40 minutes left. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about community building and what you can do as a player? Like, you don't have to be a press ganger or make content or do anything crazy. Literally just be nice to new players and be welcoming and put your arms around them and help them get over the hump, because there's a really big hump at the beginning of your learning curve that is very, very difficult. And that's one of the biggest things that holds this game back.
and celebrate their losses too. You know, oh man, I lost, and just be happy that they played a game. Just but it's like, oh, I got assassinated top 2. Oh man, what happened? And have them just like regale you with the story of their epic loss. They suddenly get over this negative feeling. It becomes this cathartic moment for them, and then they're excited to go. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go do something stupid next time. We'll see what happens. Like, dude, it might work. I want to see stupid stuff. Now, give me your Viking noble exploits after this next round. I want to hear it.
Yeah, Azeroth burns to death.
I love those stories, man. He's great kindling.
Yeah.
And when you play a new player, walk them through the game. Like, don't just kill their caster on turn 2. Show them how you can kill their caster, and then show them where their caster needs to go, and then play the next turn. And then when they feed you a heavy that they shouldn't have, show them how you can kill the heavy, and then have them move the heavy away. Like, as the veteran player, you might have to have some, less than stellar games to sort of bring the new person up to speed, and that's really important to do.
I'm not capable of doing this, but I would recommend letting them win. I'm just not wired that way very well. I try, I really do. Like, I'm the person that beats their kid at Risk. Like, I will do it.
I don't even know that letting them win is that important, as long as you're letting them have a game where they feel like they have agency and are doing things. The worst thing that can happen is when they lose and they just don't even really understand what happened. And
yeah, Rich hit the nail on the head.
Yep. I think one of the other things that was really encouraging to me early on are leagues. So that's something that we lost when we lost the press standards. But things like slow grow leagues, things like NFL leagues, those are really good for players because they come in every week. They're already set up with an opponent. They know who they're going to play. With a slow grow league, especially, you're taking things smaller at first, right? So it's best to keep track of too shorter. So I think if you're a community member trying to build up your local community, definitely look into running one of those.
I dig it. So I guess in short, don't be a jerk. That's all we're asking from the community. And the good news is almost nobody in this community is a jerk. That's why it's such a great community. So we just encourage you to be extra nice to new players, extra nice to everyone, really. I mean, we should just treat people like they're very important people, because that's how human beings should treat each other, in my opinion. But I'm not going to be disappointed Asian father and start lecturing everybody, I promise. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about War Machine strategy. Does anybody have a topic that they'd like to discuss or something they've been thinking about that's interesting? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
I'm on the spot. I need a minute to think about that.
I understand. I do this to people all the time. But I mean, honestly, we used to do Muse on Minis. We very seldom had a run sheet or a script. We just were like, what do you guys want to talk about? I don't know. We'll think of something. And we just talked about War Machine because we love talking about War Machine. I can come up with a subject if you guys want. I just thought it'd be interesting if somebody else did.
Well, I can hit you with something that's just been shaking around my mind a little bit.
I like it. Let's go.
I don't really know where this is going to lead, but I played at the Boker Brawl. What was that, last month or the month before? And historically, I've been like a decent player. I've never won a convention, but I feel like I'm always in sort of the top echelon at any con I go to. I just got the crap kicked out of me at that convention. I think I went like 2-9 or something over the course of the weekend. And so I spent a lot of time trying to think about like why that is. The obvious answer is I just don't get to play that often because of where I live right now. I don't really have meta. So that's like the obvious answer. But I was trying to think of like, why was I not able to just slide right in and play like I did at the end of Mark 3? And I think some of that is just because of the edition change and how War Machine is still War Machine, but I feel like the rhythm and the beats of the game has changed a little bit since the last edition. So I don't know if that's something worth exploring or something you guys have experienced also returning to the game, but the beats that feel a little bit different.
It's kind of interesting you bring that up, because one of the things I have noticed is I have never not been competitive at War Machine. I've always been one of the best players in my meta. I have always been, well, except for now. Now I definitely am not, right? Because I have a 7-year break. I don't have game knowledge. I don't know how to position models with troop movement because it's completely different. The game feels a little bit deadlier. Things are less tanky. So there's a little more thought that I have to put into like how I'm going to contest things or what I'm going to do. And you can't really count on anything to live. It just seems like if your opponent wants it to die, it's probably going to die.
The game to me feels simultaneously slower and faster. And what I mean by that is in all the previous editions of War Machine, scenario, you could lose scenario in one turn. If you weren't careful, you don't move your models right, your opponent goes and you just lose the game. So it almost feels slower now because you always have a chance to come back. But I often found during that weekend that I was playing scenario in a very cagey way, like I would in previous editions. And I wouldn't lose right away, but there was the snowball effect and I wasn't playing aggressive enough. And that's really why I was losing every game. Like I felt like I was always in a strong attrition position, but I was just not hanging in there scenario-wise.
And I think that speaks a lot to kind of the type of player you are, Rich, because, just thinking about my Burger Brawl experience, that was the first time I came back too, and I kind of felt the opposite way. I was, looking at scenario in Mark IV, and I was thinking, man, I'm not leaving enough gas in the tank. I can't play E. Haley and blow somebody out on a single turn and win right then and there. I need more gas. I need more models, more material to do things later. So I think that the scenario, the tempo, like you said, is just different. For you, I know you were a big Zol 2 player, so you were very methodical and precise with, I want to play this game 7 turns and grind it down. Whereas I more so blitz scenario, and I think it's kind of in between those two things now.
That's interesting. I spent a lot of time thinking about why I lost. I think one of the most important... Sorry, everyone. This is rough. One of the most important things you can ever do in a game of War Machine is to immediately think about why you lost and think about how, if you're ever in that situation again, how you prevent yourself from losing in that exact situation. And then see if that applies to other situations, because a lot of times it does. And you might be right. It just might be initiating more peace trades, for example. Interestingly, I was playing more aggressive when I first started, and I've gotten a little more passive in my gameplay because I've gotten better at my positioning. But I've started, I lost 2 games this weekend randomly on scenario. One because on Hella's feet turn, I rolled 6 double ones. Now, they were playing Orgoth, so most of their defenses went from 12 to 10, and I needed 3s to hit for the most part. And I kid you not, I rolled double ones 6 times during that turn, which completely didn't allow me to score what I thought I was going to score. It screwed up everything. And it put me on the back foot for scenario. And I couldn't get it back. So one of the things I learned this weekend, I also had another game where the guy had my opponent, who was awesome. His name is Nick. He was playing Orgoth, Horusk. He had feeded on 3 Axers and a keeper with 5 or 6 life left, contesting one of my scenario zones. I walk Invictus up. I make a Thresher, hit all 4 models, buy 3 attacks, kill nothing. I charge with a unit of Slayers, kill nothing. And then I charge with a unit of Cats, kill 2 models. Left 2 models. Now, I had plenty of stuff there to kill him, but because I had been a little bit more cagey and passive, I didn't have any more gas in the tank to go contest his side of it. And then he just sort of ended up running away with scenario. Now, I could blame dice, but what I've come to the conclusion is I need to be more aggressive and set the line of engagement further forward and be willing to take losses, like forcing my opponent to engage me outside of my back scenario pieces. Now, it was also a little weird. The flag could only go one place, and it was a house that reached 3 inches forward. Then it was 1 inch from the flag faceplate, and it couldn't go anywhere else. So it was pretty close to the middle of the board where you could contest it. So it was a little rough for me, but I should have recognized that. So I don't know if that helps you, but that's certainly something that I learned.
One thing I've been thinking about too, about kind of how the game's changed a lot, is I think about it more in terms of a chess match now. And what I mean by that is the way that units work now is very different than they used to work. If you're sending a unit into trade, it's the whole unit. There's no more, I'm going to send 3 guys out of the 10 and leave the 10 back. No, You're sending the whole unit in, and it better gain some material there, because a warjack with overtake or something is going to come and wipe out that unit. So to me, the peace trading is a little different, and that's kind of one thing that I've been having trouble with.
Peace trading is a little different, and you're also going to find Paul in chat is actually getting on it pretty directly. The new steamroller changes, the way that scoring elements are now, they demand more close engagement. We don't have 12-inch zones anymore where we can, old protectorate player, I was a big fan of just sitting with an inditer at that tiny little caddy corner right diagonally across from me, and you're never getting to me. And then I send a couple of worthless models to just jam you out of the zone. It's a lot harder to stop people from going where you want them to go, and the scenario elements themselves just have a smaller footprint overall. So they demand that you play a bit more forward, a little bit more aggressive, or you're going to find yourself on the back foot. Especially like even when you're swinging a decent attrition advantage, you can still be getting blown out on scenario because you simply just didn't come forward quite enough and present enough, like to block your opponent out of contesting your stuff while also contesting theirs. It's a different game. I know when I was first getting back into it, scenario, I kind of liked it because it felt like a lot more fast seesaw sort of thing rather than what did Steam Forge call it? 2 slugs humping or 2 snails humping in the middle of the board, something like that. It felt a lot more like, well, I'm going to do this. And then my opponent would go, well, that's nice. I'm going to do this. And so there was a lot of give and take and, cracking back and forth at each other. And scenario elements started, they vary dynamically because of that. I kind of like that personally, and it was easier for me to wrap my head around because I just found that a bit more fun. But if you're used to a slower pace, Harvey style of game, Harvey Zale 2, just move up the board and be like, hi, here I am. I'm not leaving. And I'm just going to nickel and dime you down while keeping the mainstay of my force safe. It's not really where the game is right now because, like to Danny's point, you have to commit a whole ton. And then the scenario elements themselves demand that you are just more front and center and open to retaliation when you do commit.
Yeah, as Danny mentioned, I was a long-time Zal 2 player. And now I'm playing Orgoth right now, so I'm playing a lot of Harusk, who has a reasonably similar game plan to how Zal 2 wants to approach things. And when I was a Zal 2 player in the previous Steamroller editions, I would often hold his feet for as long as possible. So I would play very cagey, kind of knew exactly what models I could feed to stay relevant on the scenario, until I was able to position myself in later turns so I could feed extremely aggressively and essentially win the game with that play. And when I tried to do that with Harusk, I felt like it just wasn't possible with the rhythm of the scenario, and I was losing games. And I think what I've since realized is that I would often be better off almost just running forward as fast as I could on the top of 2 and feeding, which feels simpler, but also in this scenario packet, more relevant.
Funny you should mention that. I was just thinking about a Helith list. Typically, I play Helith to alpha my opponents, but I was thinking like +2 is such a good defensive feat. Like, what if I just took all the Dreadguard and just ran forward and feeded, and then like took all of the ground and been like, okay, you want to stand in front of all these Dreadguard? I mean, nobody wants to get charged by cats and slayers and shot by archers, and they're all like 15-18 or 15-19. I mean, that's a stat line. That is a stat line.
Yeah.
Probably works.
Maybe. Don't want to commit too hard to the yes on that until I see it.
Well,
And the number of times where I've moved Zadaroth forward and just been like, my entire army is defense 15-16. And if you miss once, I'm teleporting away. You just need 6s and 7s to hit, and then just watch my opponent just 6, 6, 6, 7, 6. Okie dokie, I didn't have a beat. That was cool. To Rich's point, the game is deadly. I don't know that it's deadlier. I think some of the things that used to be harder to kill are less hard to kill. But there are armies that are able to hit fix to the point where defensive skew feats don't work super great. There are armies that are able to just manifest damage, Necrofactorium, or and also Sea Raiders and Infernals, where it's just that's cool that you have a +3 armor feat. I don't really care. I'm still killing your Garlghast in the middle of the board on feat turn. No, I don't care if it's viable or resolved. Like that, there are still ways around anything, like any of these things, which is kind of what makes the game fun. There's play, there's counterplay, and it's kind of knowing those matchups and understanding them. That's going to help take that to the next level. Because, like Rich, to your point, like you can run Horus forward top of 2 in feet, and sometimes that's the right call, and then other times it's.
Oh, I think we lost Chris.
Oh no.
Yeah, you're freezing up, Chris. I don't know. Is that happening for everybody, or is that just me?
Yeah, I'm seeing it too.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay, good. All right, Chris, I'm putting you in timeout for a second. Besides, I disagree with you. I'm just kidding.
That's fine.
I'm just playing.
Yeah.
I'm just playing.
Suffering from the same storm standing as so.
I think we all are. I'm not too well. I guess I'm a little bit north of you guys, but whatever.
I
what else?
Comcast involved. I haven't lost it yet. Besides that.
Rich, what else did you notice was kind of an issue for you? Now, we talked about aggression and scenario. Was there anything else you identified in your examination of your games that you were like, oh yeah, I also, to use a poker term, identified this leak in my game where you were like losing value?
It was a lot of just, I think this is mostly out of practice stuff, but it's really important. You have your frontline pieces that are going to take the hit. You have your backline support, but then those midline pieces that you want to be able to do work once the front line was engaged. I found that often those midline pieces just weren't positioned correct. So they weren't in position to get in the fight when I needed them to get into the fight. I was just like, I wasn't close to optimizing their ability to perform in the game.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I brought up clock is selfishly, I have a little bit of problem with clock, but mainly that's because of positioning, right? Because I have now in some ways positioning is a little bit easier because you only have to get one model to charge, and then the rest are charging, right? So you don't have to have a charge lane for every model.
Right.
But you want to keep your options open. So positioning with a non-tactician faction in all 40 and 50 millimeter, like I'm playing an army of trolls and 50 millimeter cats, and trying to position so that I can countercharge my opponent while also being relevant with shield guards, not gumming myself up, threatening what I want to threaten. So I just spend cognitively a lot of time like, okay, these guys need to go here and these guys need to go here. And eventually that'll be muscle memory for me. But right now, cognitively, I have to think about all those things because I don't have an easy button like Tactician, like where it just doesn't matter. Now I do have Ghost Walk, and I may start racking it just to make it a little bit easier on myself. You know what I mean? Where I can just be like, okay, yeah, I got a get out of jail free card with Spell Slave. I just Ghost Walk this thing and charge through my models and call it a day. But I would kill for Tactician in Dusk. Also, they're elves. They should totally have it. I've seen Lord of the Rings. You see how regimented they are? The elves, they should 100% have. You can't disagree with me, right? You agree with me? They should have Tactician. It makes sense.
These are vampires.
Look, you have Ghost Walk, which is like a top 5 spell in the game.
I know, it's crazy how good Dusk's rack is when John's like, I should take Ghost Walk. It's like, yeah, most of us would kill to have that spell on a stick. Are you kidding? But that's how good Dusk's rack is. That becomes like a tertiary like choice. Like you don't even consider it until you've got like a 3 rack caster. It's crazy.
One of the other things that I learned in thinking about, because I've had a lot of losses, something that's been quite common is people go for more assassinations against me in general because I'm playing Hazaroth and I'm almost always ahead on attrition, and I'm almost always camping like 6 focus, and I've started putting Inviolable Resolve on Hazaroth like turn 2 or 3 because people realize, oh, I'm drowning, I gotta kill Hazaroth, and then they seem to get there a lot, mainly because he's flammable. But I'm taking an assassination attempt a lot, and several of my losses have been Hazaroth falling over dead, which is weird because he's 14-17 with a buff. He's usually 14-19 with 18 boxes, so he shouldn't die that fast. I could also stop charges by judiciously saving models that are in charge lanes. But yeah, he just burns to death apparently. So
It's also a large base, though, right? In a faction that doesn't really want to play too many other large bases.
Yeah, he is. It's less screening, and I think just, well, I mean, I know a game against Bill, I don't think that was an attrition thing. I think that was he was determined to play the least.
I lost my sound, guys. I think my headset died. I apologize. So why don't you take over? I'm going to see if I can find another headset or get this fixed. Back in a sec.
Yeah, absolutely. What were you saying, Chris?
I was saying that I know for the game against Bill in the tournament I ran a couple weeks ago that it was less because of a board position, more because he was determined to play 90 minutes of War Machine, like total in the entire tournament. Like I don't think he went past turn 2 ever. That's just the kind of player he is. He just likes those runs, and he was stress testing Nixian with new tools and Shadow Flame Shard, from the character box that released the what was it, Shadows and Scum box with Foul Blood and Pyrex. I might be getting that name right. And Nixian got a lot of tools that really turned her on as a long-range spell assassin threat. So he was just trying that out, and lo and behold, it tended to work. But I haven't found actually that I'm getting assassinated very much. I got assassinated yesterday or 2 days ago by my brother. He found out 1%er on me. That felt great. So it's still live in the game, but I tend to see now this like give and take. I remember starting in Mark II where like 20-minute games were a little bit more the norm. You saw more of those top of 2s or bottom of 2s, or in some cases bottom of 1s, dependent on who you were playing against and who you were playing with, what you did on the top of 1. Now it seems to be like a back and forth in scenario until one side is definitely getting a bit blown out in scenario or attrition's feeling behind, and then just goes, well, time for the 10%er. You're there, so let's see if it works. That's kind of the cadence I've seen a bit more now. Not just, screw it all, we're just going for it no matter what, because it's not super easy to pull off generally.
So I think one thing that I noticed, I think you're right, there are less top of 2 assassinations, but there are way more third, 3, 4 assassinations. And some of that I think is just because of the meta we're in. I was kind of thinking about this, and if you look at the most powerful casters in the game right now, it's Zatarok, it's Kythos, right? And what do those 2 casters do? They stack defense. So in order to combat that, people are playing higher mat troops. They're playing factions with boosted to hit.
Oh man, everyone's
really
dropped.
Influences is that most warcasters do have a higher defensive stat. So just because you're bringing those tools already, it's easier to go for an assassination run later in the game.
Yeah, totally. I also just feel like there's something we all have less models on the table. So I feel like there's a little bit of a need for your warcaster to be a little bit more relevant in the game.
I definitely feel that, Rich. I was playing Oriax earlier today and feeling bad about that because Oriax doesn't do a whole lot on the table personally. And playing into Shirus, it's kind of night and day when you have your opponent has a Warcaster, Warlock, or Leader model that is able to, materially contribute to the game turn over turn, and then one who just kind of doesn't. It's almost like you're on back foot, top of 1 even, just with your inability to really affect the board state with your leader versus them.
Right. So what's been the biggest challenge for you coming back to the game? Because you also took a little bit of a break, right?
Yeah. I took a couple of years break with 2020, and I got back in about 3 years later. Pandemic, everything kind of moved to War Table, and to the point earlier, War Table is great, but it's no substitute for just pushing models in person. And that was something like I miss the community, I miss conventions. The biggest challenge I've had coming back is managing the cognitive load in a way that makes sense. And, I'm at the point where I just need to fine tune those silly little mistakes that I keep making, better. I'm playing into the Maryland area has its fair share of WTC players. I mean, we have like 3/4 of one WTC team here. So I'm playing against the Bevs, Chris Gunther on the regular, and getting the clock cleaned, which is pretty fun. But I'm never getting cleaned out. Like, I'm never getting blown out. It's always like, oh, I held my objective turn or my scenario train with 2 models instead of 3. I should have held it with 3. Or I took 5 minutes too long to make a decision here, so now I'm going to lose on clock, and I need to get a little bit more aggressive than I otherwise would be. So it's, that my biggest challenge has just been managing like all of the different little marbles in your hand that are just those like little itty bitty things that can swing a game against really good players. I'm reading chat right now because is your experience with reduced assassinations a result of the steamroller missions being more relevant to win than the past over cast or kill win? Absolutely. It is scenario is the most consistent way to win, and attrition is the most consistent way to win a scenario. Mathematically, percentage-wise, it's a heck of a lot easier to kill 5 idiot models than it is to kill a warcaster or a warlock. So no matter what their stats are, because those 5 idiots have worse stats. So I definitely would think, that scenario does have a big role to play in that one. But to the point that more turn 3/4 assassinations are opening up, we're seeing a pool of very active leaders that are played right now, and active leaders like coming forward and maybe getting themselves into a little bit of trouble, and thus opening up windows to get their heads lopped off. John, no sound coming from you.
Let me try that again. Can you guys hear me?
We are.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right. I think I got it figured out. Hopefully I charged the headset for like 2 or 3 minutes. Hopefully it'll last another 15. We'll see. If it goes out again, it goes out again, I guess. If it dies, it dies. Even sound a little bit like Ivan Drago. All right. So what did I miss? Anything exciting?
I think when you dropped off, we were talking about, still talking about caster kills, and I had mentioned that one of the things with Hazaroth is he is a large base, right? And a faction that doesn't have a lot of large bases that want to block line of sight. And he wants to play a little bit aggressively to get the whole army in that 10-inch bubble. So I can see why he's a bit vulnerable to caster kills.
Yeah, I mean, I just would figure if he was armor 19 with 6 focus, people wouldn't go for it, but that is not the case. They're just like, oh, he's there, I'm totally going to kill him. 20-30% would be darned. And it wasn't like that in Mark II when I played, or even early stages Mark III. But I started thinking about it, like I kind of put them in a position where, like there was one game I was playing, it was the bottom of 3, and all my models were still on the table, and I hadn't taken a single point of damage. And I'm sure my opponent looks at that and goes, I've made a ton of attacks, and I guess I need to switch gears and kill Hazaroth, right? So that's, go ahead.
We got a question coming in from chat that I was looking at. Is it worth picking a defense to add to your army for a point over a 1-point cheapo support model? Like, one of the cool things here is that defenses don't cost points, so you don't even have to make that choice. You can take them both. I think that defenses, if you're adding them in as a command card, that is kind of a list dependent thing. I know that a lot of Kythos lists take defenses. As a matter of fact, my Necrofactorium drop almost always takes Sapper because I don't want Kythos to have a guaranteed safe spot to hide behind during that beat. I want to keep him running a little bit scared. Is it like it is dependent on your list? Do you have a forward playing caster that you want to like put a wall in front of and be relatively safe from ranged, or make hard to engage with melee? Yeah, defenses are probably going to be worth something for you. It's never a bad call. And if you have a caster that can be relatively safe for that, you'd rather just play the board. I don't tend to take them very much. I mean, I also only own one set of them, so I don't really have a ton to pick from. And every time I've played them, like with Infernals, even with Agathon, who is, definition, old man stats, 14, 15, it's not quite Severius 1 bad, but boy, we're getting there. I always regretted taking them. I just felt like, this didn't really add a lot to the game that I couldn't have just done better with just playing the board and playing threat ranges a little bit more specifically, or a little bit more exactingly. just not giving windows to my opponent. But that's me. Like you could also have Horsk in the middle of the board behind 2 walls. Why not? Like screw off. That's a fine. Building Fort Kick-Ass with Horsk is also fun as hell too.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I play defenses with Hazaroth, and I'm usually behind a wall when he dies because it's always actually he's died twice to Nixian. Okay, I learned something new every time, right? Did you know Ruin was a thing? I didn't know Ruin existed because the first time he died, the Ruin wasn't part of the equation. It was just the stupid Wyvern Animus, the Dragon's Fire Fury thing or whatever it is, and then Prey. But this time she got an extra 2 damage because she charged something, put up her Animus for Ruin, repositioned. Why that beast has repositioned, I'll never know. Got him in the 5-inch bubble, and so all my math was wrong. So I learned something new. And then, the 12 on the firewall didn't help. So that was neat. I even had a focus. We figured out that, by the way, this is actually pro tip. If you have focus at the end of your turn, you can use that focus on a firewall. And so I even had a focus. I'm like, yeah, just don't roll a 12 and I live. Oh, okay, cool. You roll a 12. I guess I die. And for some reason, every other Dread card has tough, but Hazaroth doesn't have tough. I don't even get the dignity of making a tough check. So he's apparently flammable and not tough. So whatever, who knew?
To be fair, too, 2 things there. One, I feel like Shadowflame Shard is like maybe the premier assassination faction of the game right now.
Yeah.
No shame in that. And 2, on the defenses front, I feel like you really need to be aware of the faction you're playing and have a faction that can play around your own defenses, because you can end up hurting yourself with those.
For sure.
Just as much as you hurt your opponent.
Yep. Yeah, usually what I use defenses for is my second wave, so to speak. And often we'll use the reconnaissance card to get my charges past my defenses. I usually have a unit that uses duck and cover when I'm setting up. And then I usually have at least 1 model that can make a charge outside without getting gummed up by a defense.
Right.
So if they can go for killing that model, sometimes I let them, sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on the situation.
Right.
But all right. Well, we did have our Getting Better segment. Are you guys okay if we just talk about that really quick? I don't think it's a long discussion.
Sure.
I think if you want to get better at the game, you should put 100 reps into a list. 1 list. Play it into everything. And maybe it's not 100. Maybe it's 50. Maybe it's 25. It's really whatever you want to do. But if you put that kind of focus into a list, you'll start learning the nuance of the list, the nuance of the game. And you will become a better player by rote of repetition of doing the same things over and over again. That will bleed into other lists. So you can even play those lists into bad matchups. You learn so much about what you're capable of with your list into a bad matchup. You probably learn more in general. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this good or bad advice?
Good advice.
I think it's the best advice.
Yeah. This game, I think we hit it a few times. This game has a lot of moving parts. Simplify it for yourself. Lower that cognitive stress, that burden. Just get reps with what you know. Learn the rules for that. You'll get to expand out. Don't worry too much about it. But just play the same thing over and over again as you're learning. You'll learn quick. You'll learn fast. And then when you're ready, you're comfortable, or you're just really bored with this list and you really need to change, that's a great moment to switch it up a bit. But you're going to take those, that learning, and you're going to take that forward into another list, or into your next list, into your next games.
Yeah, and I feel like we can all get a little autopilot with lists too, where we deploy them the same way. Turn 1, turn 2, it all goes the same way. And it really pays to play a list a bunch and just try different things. Position different models different places. Try playing your support a little more aggressively. There's a lot of ways to play a list.
What I really like to do is, in my wins and losses, I try to think about what I could have done differently to win more or not lose, or lose less, so to speak. This was positioned really bad. For example, I was playing a game this past weekend and my opponent's army was beautiful. It was all this zenithal painting, purple and blue. It was awesome. but the models blended together like camouflage. And I thought there were Axers over there, and they were actually barragers, and they killed 2 of my snipers. And I could have just put the snipers behind the building, but I was like, they're Axers, whatever. No, they weren't. They were barragers. Big difference. They shot and killed all my snipers, and I was like, well, that was dumb. I guess I'll have to pay better attention next time. And it wasn't like anything the opponent was doing on purpose. It was just, is in the early stages of painting, so they're kind of just zenithal painted. So it's all just blue, a sea of blue and purple. It all blends together, and you lose sort of the edges on things. And there were Axers there. There was one barrager, and then 2 more that were kind of in the back that I didn't really see. And the barrager was in the middle of 3 Axers. But I guess if I would have thought, I was like, oh, there's 4 models there, I probably could have figured that out. But I was sick and tired, and I made a mistake. But I learned, like, there's no reason to risk snipers. I mean, there's a building right there. They move 6, repo 3. Like, they could have literally played peekaboo behind that building the whole game and just probably killed all that stuff eventually.
Right.
But
just to sort of bring this around too to our earlier discussion with clock, the way to get really good at playing on clock is to play the same list over and over again and have those beats memorized. So you should really get to a point where you can play your first 2 turns within 15 minutes at most.
Unless your opponent gift wrap their army and you have a serious like production turn on 2, you can get it to the point where I have definitely gone through turn 2 in 12 minutes. When you understand all the moving parts behind your army, every one of them is a bit different. Your lower model count's going to be easier, but still, like, you get to the point where it's even, you can play a 50 model army and take 12 minutes for 2 turns. You totally can.
The other thing, go ahead, Rich.
No, you go.
The other thing I think it's important to point out is if you play one list, you just sort of intimately understand all the rules for all your models, and you're not looking at cards all the time, which eats up a lot of time. You're like, oh, what is this guy's rat? I think it's 7. I better verify. Oh yeah, it is 7. Well, you play enough reps, and you know that model's rat is 7. You know his POW is 14. You know that they move 6. You know what I mean? You know that they have repo 3. You know how all of them move and how they operate, and it becomes muscle memory. And so you're not doing things like, okay, what special rule? He's got 3 shots. What are these shots? Okay, I want to use this one. Because that's a lot of time. It just is a lot of time to read rules and look things up. So playing one list gives you a chance to learn, everything.
Absolutely.
Kevin from Advanced Maneuvers has a question I think we should answer. Rich, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear. I'm just going to read it out loud so people hear it. Are defenses just a new player resource and experienced players just positioned better? Are they a legit competitive resource to take? Your friend forever, Kevin. I added a little piece to that, just saying.
Who wants to go first?
You.
I think they're super legit. I just think you have to play an army that can take advantage of it. For instance, Ghost Walk is really handy. Personally, I'd be afraid to play them in Orgoth just because I don't have like an abundance of Pathfinder. And I run like a lot of big things with big bases, so you can kind of trip over yourself. But if you're running an army that has a fragile caster or wants to push defense or has abundant access to mitigating terrain, I think they're a super good resource.
I'll go next. Absolutely, they're a competitive, legit resource, and you should take them where it makes sense. And the thing I'll add on there is that defenses aren't just barriers. We also have spike traps and powder keg. Now I go.
Oh, I think we lost Chris, so I'm going to jump in. Sorry, Chris. Bad Storm doing bad things. The other thing that's this is just a pro tip that I learned this weekend, because I play defenses in both my lists and I play Invictus in both my lists. And a lot of times you can set up situations where you have the defense for your turn and then you use Invictus to get rid of it for the charge, and you can get your opponent pretty good that way. I did that a couple times where I was just like, I'll just walk Invictus over here and shoot that. touch this defense, it goes away. Now all these guys can charge. It was so you have a lot of control over that. And a lot of times defenses are to deliver the guys. Like you don't need them turn 4 or 5, except for maybe for your caster, right? That that's kind of what I learned. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was trying to read and talk at the same time. Not smart.
Oh, I was saying before my internet kicked out is that there are more defenses than just barriers. So spike traps are super cool. I like those a lot. It's great. It's a great way to just lock down a part of the board from an opponent. If they've got, single wound infantry may be victims, but they show up, and that's a great way to just make them think twice about coming in. Powder kegs have some utility besides feeding Orin souls, and sometimes, hey, you might even chuck them. Fire pits don't; they suck. Sorry, there isn't much good for them. But there's more than just barriers. Totally legit. I take them where it makes sense. Just again, with anything that if you're building a good list, just have a game plan for what you're going to use them for. But generally, what you're doing. I want my caster to have some defense. I want this part module, this component of my army to have some extra defense. I want to cover a flank with spike trap. I had a player actually use a barrier as a way to stop me from scoring a payload a turn early. Nothing ever stayed behind that wall the entire game until I moved my freaking objective close to it. And then I was like, I'm going to need 2 moves to move my freaking payload into your scenario terrain because you have a wall sitting right there and I can't end my turn on top of it to toe in. Crap. It was brilliant. I was pissed, but also I took that away going, that is a use I really hadn't thought of for that, for defenses. So
I just cataloged that, by the way. Also, don't block yourself. You can do that too if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, that too. I'm good at doing that part. I don't take them either because I'm too smooth brained for that. Okay.
Well, Rich, it's now that time of the show where we kind of close things off. Is there anything you want to share that you're working on that you think is exciting or you want other people to know about?
Gaming wise or just in general?
Anything at all. The floor is yours.
I'll just say I have an exciting documentary project that I'm embarking on right now that is also about another niche gaming endeavor that is not miniature wargaming, but it's something you guys probably don't even know exists. So I'm really excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Will you promise to tell me when it comes out so I can go watch it?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be shooting it, assuming we can get the funding in December. So, it's about a year away, but I'm really excited about it. So that's what I've got going on. And I got a big War Machine event coming next 2 weekends from now in South Jersey. So, 2 exciting
things. Oh, yeah. That's the one on the 19th?
No, it's the 12th.
Okay.
We call it the barbecue brawl. It's what my
very cool.
South Jersey puts on every summer.
I may have to come out for that. Although I'm a little bit on War Machine probation because I've been at tournaments for the last 3 weeks, including going to Portland. So maybe I shouldn't, but sometimes I can't help myself. What are you gonna do? How about you, Chris? You working on anything fun you want to share?
I'm working on a deep dive article series. So I did the the overview of the Mark IV armies, and now I'm doing like an actual deep dive into each army about the different components, what they do, and then sample lists. They'll be going up on the blog eventually. It's between that and work, it's taking quite a lot of time. They are not quick articles. I hope you guys get a comfortable chair because it's going to take a minute to read through them. Storm Legion will be the first one, and I'm through everything but the solos on that right now. So, and it's I think over 30 pages thus far. So we're going into the weeds a bit. It's a dive on every single leader, every cohort option, every weapon option for the cohort. It's everything, and it's going to be for all of them. But these aren't quick turns. These aren't ones that I can do in like a week. So it'll be coming soon. Just not yet.
You just really taking advantage of the medium. I think the written medium is a really good place to do that. I also happen to think that video is also a good place to do that. Long form video. It's got to be really long form video, but a blog has an advantage of there's some people that are, everybody knows this, right? But there's different ways to learn. Some people learn better by reading. So you're really providing a service Some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing. So, pro tip, if you ever want to learn something a little bit better, if you play an audiobook while you're reading it, you will retain more, significantly more. Yeah.
Never tried that.
Yeah. It works really, really well because you retain like some percentage of the things you hear and some percentage of the things you read. And if you do both at the same time, it's like a stacking effect. It's not double, but it's better. So
Sounds like my brain would explode. Wow. Cool. I'll have to try that.
Right?
All right, John, what are you working on? You hit us, so now it's your turn.
I'm trying to recover.
Healing is good.
Yeah. Well, basically, I'm going to be working on this stream. You should start seeing more shorts coming out from these. I'm sort of getting a handle on making shorts. I don't know if they have any value. I'm kind of hoping it just catches somebody's eye, and then they end up coming back to War Machine or become War Machine curious and start looking into it more. So I'm going to be doing a lot of shorts, and eventually I would like to do tactical deep dives on all the models because I have, again, I really hate self-aggrandizement, so I'm not trying to do that. But I have a good mind for finding uses for models and building lists. So I would like to share my thoughts about all the models. Everybody's entitled to my opinion. I know, terrible. But I think it's interesting because I'm naturally optimistic and enthusiastic. So it'll just be a great resource for people that can I want to go learn about my army. What does this model do? Here's how you can use it. I'm just not wired to tell people, I'm sorry, don't buy it. It's suboptimal. Because a lot of people already bought it. You know what I mean? So I just want to give people a tool on how they can use it, how it works in their faction, some interesting use cases, and it'll give me an opportunity to really have a good think about every model in the game, which will help me be a better competitive player. So it's kind of self-serving, but I think it'll be really cool, but I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do all that. So it's going to take some time to start putting them out. Obviously, we'll start with things that I'm playing, but I already have people hitting me. Hey, can you help me build a list? Sure. What do you got? Let's take a look. Because I helped build a lot of faction defining lists in Mark II. Meat Mountain I was a big part of. Testament, High Reclaimer, Protectorate Gunline. Nobody had heard of a Protectorate Gunline until I started playing it. I remember everybody played Blessing of Vengeance with Sevi, and I'm like, okay, I can spend 4 focus to fire off 1 Ashes to Ashes, which is pretty cool. But I could just spend that focus to fire off Redeemer rockets, boost damage, and I do a lot more damage, or I can shoot heavies. So it worked out good. Anyway, enough self-aggrandizement. I'm not really comfortable with that, but I don't lack for confidence. So there's that, I guess. Anyway, thanks everyone. We appreciate you stopping by, and we'll see you next week where we'll do a recap of the Portland event. Like I said, Brandon Owens may be on. Alex will definitely be back. He had an unfortunate thing happen in his family. He had to duck out at the last minute, so Danny tagged in for him. And we'll see you all soon. I appreciate everyone, and peace and love, y'all.